Well, good morning, Booktube. It's Tag Tuesday, and since I'm way behind on tags, I thought I'd try to get caught up on these. And the one that I'm going to do today is Booktube's annual Mid Year Freakout Tag. And of course, this will be the 2023 edition of that tag. Now, I was trying to find the original creator of this, and I couldn't find it. At least quickly. So I don't have the original creator, but it's been going around on Booktube. It's been around a few years because I've done it a few times. I started watching it on Steve Donahue's channel, and like I said, I saw it on a bunch of people's channels. So I'm not going to list all of them, but I would advise going out and finding your favorite booktubers and looking at how they answered the mid-year freakout tag. Always kind of a fun one. It's just a look back at your reading, how you're doing halfway through the year. What have you got accomplished? What are the best books, worst books, all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun tag, easy tag to do, especially if you are like me and you keep a catalog of everything you've read. And if you can just kind of remember back over the, the span of 6 months, what was good and what was bad. It's a pretty easy tag to do. So for this tag, of course, like I said, we're through 2023. We're at the very end of June here. And at this point, now I have a couple of more books that I do think I'm going to get finished. I have probably 3 more that I think I'll get finished before June's out, possibly 4. But at this point, here we are. What is it? It's today, 25th of June, 26th of June. I can't even remember what day it is. It's Tuesday at the end of June. I have read to this point 21 nonfiction books, 47 fiction books, for a grand total of 68 total books. And again, like I said, I am pretty sure that number will go up by 3 or 4 before Friday is all said and done. One thing that stood out to me is how many Agatha Christie books I have read. I've read 15 Agatha Christie's at this point. I have been making it a point. I've been reading at least one a month, the Marple a month with Peg and Martine. I am so sorry, Martine. Peg and Martine over at the History Shelf. They've been doing a Marple a month. I've been following along with that. And I have a book on my shelf that's like they call it a bed table or bedtime Agatha Christie book, where it does a synopsis of all of her books that she ever wrote. And then, it talks about the settings of the books that she wrote. And so I've been kind of following along because I got those in chronological order. And I've been doing the Marple a month, and then I've been trying to read all the Marples in order that they were published. Now, some of them have gotten out of order, but I've been doing fairly decent at that, and I've really enjoyed Agatha Christie. That's been fun for me. Something that, a couple of years ago was definitely not in my wheelhouse. So anyway, you're waiting for the question, so here we go. Here are my responses for the first 6 months of the year 2023. And so the first question is the best book that you've read so far. So if a lot of these answers, I'm warning you, since I've read 15 Agatha Christie's, there's going to be a few Agatha Christie answers. And I will just start off with the first of the Hercule Poirot books, the Mysterious Affair at Styles. I really enjoyed that book. It really kind of got me started with Poirot, and I've enjoyed his books. He's kind of a fun character, and I've gotten to where I really, really like him. And it all started with this book. So this is and I did this one, I want to say back in January. This is one of the best books I've read all year, so I'm glad I've read that. Another book and I've actually got 3 answers for this since I had already 68 books read. I figured I could do more than one. Centennial by James Michener. Now, I don't have the copy. I was trying to find it quickly, couldn't find it, and I needed to get the video done, so I just hoped you would kind of bear with me on that. It's a boring cover anyway. It's not a very entertaining cover, but the book itself is not boring by any stretch of the imagination. Awesome book. Big old 1,000-pager that I thoroughly enjoyed. Highly recommended. It's all about the town of Centennial, Colorado, and it basically does a history of the state of Colorado based around Centennial, the town. And it was a wonderful, wonderful story. And I've told you about this before over and over again, not to beat a dead horse here, but it starts with the tectonic plates. I mean, it goes clear back in history and talks about the Earth's movement and how it started to form the Rocky Mountains, and then it talks about the beginnings of plant life, and it goes into the dinosaurs. It goes into the different animals that we find there: horses, the buffalo, the beaver, the I know I'm probably I said buffalo. I'm probably forgetting something, but it goes through all of that, and then it gets into the Native Americans, and then it gets into the European, as far as the trappers, the fur trappers coming out, the farmers coming out, the ranchers coming out, and it goes through that whole history and brings it all the way up to the bicentennial of 1976. It brings it all the way up to there, and it ends with the environmental movement. It's got a big statement there at the end of the book that I thought he did very, very well, that, talking about how important it is to protect and save our environment, and there's a balance there. You can use it, but there's got to be some conservation efforts and balance that out. And I thought it was really good without it being totally in your face, over the top environmentalism. It was subtle up until the last couple chapters. Then it really kind of kicked into high gear, but you really got the point of it because he laid the foundation of that throughout the whole book. And I thought that was really, really well done. Very tasteful. And then the other one that I thought was really good, and I had started this years ago. I'd started the first chapter or two while I was standing in Walmart, and I finally picked the book back up. I got a copy for myself, and then I picked it back up this year for my reading event that I'm doing opening day, which is where I read a baseball book every month through the MLB season. And one of the first ones I started off with was The Closer by Mariano Rivera, with Wayne Coffey as his he's not a ghostwriter, but he's basically doing all the writing. Thoroughly enjoyed this. I have a lot of respect for Mariano Rivera. He was a class act in baseball, and I have a lot of respect for the guys who don't sit and pat themselves on the back. They just let their work do the talking, and that was very much Mariano Rivera. He's a very humble character in Major League Baseball, and I really enjoyed reading about his life in baseball and the impacts that he had. He also brings in the book, something else I enjoyed reading about was his religious life and how his religion played a role in his life and keeping him humble and kept him on course. And I really enjoyed that part of it. So those are probably my three best books that I've read so far in 2023. So number 2, the best sequel that you've read so far. Now, I was going through, and there's no true sequels. Now, with the Marple series, in the Poirot series, I took those as sequels because they're coming after the first one. I'm kind of cheating a little bit. It's not like necessarily a book number 2. So hopefully you'll bear with me, because I didn't have any where you had the original book and then a sequel to it. I didn't read any of those so far this year. So the one that I chose was from the Miss Marple series, was 450 to Paddington. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Miss Marple played a pretty good role in this. She's not necessarily the main character, but she plays a great side character. I tend to enjoy Miss Marple's books more when she's actually in the book. Some of the Marple series, she doesn't show up until like 80% of the book is done, and then she finally shows up as a afterthought, and I don't like that at all. I like when she's there from pretty close to the beginning, if not at the beginning, very close to the beginning, and then at least running through the book, and she does that in 450 to Paddington. Again, she's not the main character, but it's all about a murder that takes place on a train, and her best friend, or one of her best friends, witnesses the murder. She comes and she tries to tell the authorities, and everybody kind of laughs it off, like, okay, old lady. And so she tells Miss Marple, and Miss Marple is the one who gets the main character hired on as a maid or a housekeeper, cook, whatever you want to call that. It's kind of a multiple job for this rich family that was stationed right by where they believe the murder happened. And that lady ends up finding the body, and that's where our whole mystery comes in. Who murdered the woman on the train? And so thoroughly enjoyed that. Would highly recommend that to anybody. Let's see, number 3, the new release you haven't read yet but want to. And if you're wondering, I got my paper down here at the bottom, or on my lap here. So that's what I'm looking at. So my new release that I haven't read yet but I want to. I got a couple of those. Princeton Press has come out with a few books that they have sent me, or another one that somebody else sent me that I would really like to partake in this second half of the year. And this is going to go with another reading event I'm involved in that I'm a co-host for, which is Historathon 2023. It's a nonfiction history reading event that is going to take place all year. We've broken the year up into quarters: first, second, third, and fourth quarter. First quarter was ancient history to 500. Second quarter was 500 to 1500. Third quarter, which is about ready to start here on Saturday, is 1500 to 1820, and then fourth quarter will be 1820 to the present. And so this goes right in with the third quarter, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's America Before 1787, The Unraveling of a Colonial Regime by John Elster. And so I'm always up for some American history, and of course this is obviously going to tie in some British history with it. So I'm very excited for that. I've introduced that one on the channel before. Most of these I've introduced before, so I'm not going to talk a lot about them. The next one that's on my list is a Chunky Monkey. This guy has been all over Booktube. There's been a lot of people that have talked about this book. Steve Donahue talked about this book on his video. John David talked about it on his video, and he sent me, John David, thank you, John, for sending this. He sent me, he had an extra copy of it, and I was like, yep, I'll take it. I teach about the Soviets, and as you can see, it is a monstrous sized book. It is 906 pages, so it is it's a mammoth. But The Soviet Century, Archaeology of a Lost World by Carl Schlogel. Hopefully I said that right. If I didn't, please forgive me. So looking forward to that, all about the Soviet Empire. So let's see. Oh, and then another one that came out. I actually checked. I don't have the copy. I checked it out from the library, and then I just realized I was over my head. I already had 10 books going. Why did I check out another book from the library? But it was called The Wager by David Gran, and it was about a shipwreck that happened and some guys that got stranded, and their journey, their voyage, and what happened with their ship and their crew and everything. And that one's been on Booktube a lot also. There's been several people who have been reading that. So that's another one I'm looking forward to. So number 4 on the Mid-Year Freakout tag. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I am really, really looking forward to, you guys know that I'm a John Grisham fan. Here, I'm going to tilt the camera right fast. All right, you see way up there on the top shelf, I got tons and tons of John Grisham books. Matter of fact, it's all of the books he's wrote. And I just enjoy his writing. Now, some stories I enjoy more than others. Some are really well done. Some feel like they're a little bit rushed. So he's a little bit hit and miss sometimes, but this particular one I've been looking forward to for a very long time. It is a sequel, so it actually would have went for number 2 if I would have done this at the end of the year. Let's see. It's a sequel to The Firm, which was one of his first books. I think it was his second book that he wrote, The Firm, which most of you are familiar with the movie The Firm. Oh, good night. What is his name? Tom. Mental blank. Anyway, yeah. that is going to drive me insane. Young kids out there, when old age hits, it hits hard. So anyway, I'll think it. Tom Cruise. There we go. I knew I'd remember it. Had Tom Cruise in it. The Firm. It was about a lawyer coming out of college. He grew up poor, has not a great background, and he has an opportunity with him and his young, beautiful wife to be able to hook onto a law firm and make a lot of money real quick and move up in the law firm through really hard work, which is what he's really good at. He's very well known for it. And so Tom Cruise's character comes across this, in the book, The Firm, the law firm itself, they are the lawyers for a lot of criminals. And so they hide a lot of evidence and avoid taxes and all that kind of stuff. And there's been some lawyers in their firm that have found out how not innocent this law firm is, and they've come up dead. And so Tom Cruise goes on a mission to try to figure out, why are these guys all coming up dead? And so anyway, it's a thriller. It's a really good book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this fall, in October of 2023, so my birthday month, I am going to receive, hopefully, if not, I'll make sure I buy it anyway, the book, The Exchange, which is going to be the sequel to The Firm. So I'm really excited about that. So let's move on to the next one. Sorry about my big gap there. Sometimes the old brain doesn't work as fast as I want it to. So number 5 is, what is the biggest disappointment of the year? And I have 3 big disappointments in the 68 books I've read so far. So Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and then Through the Looking Glasses goes right with it. So I guess that's a sequel. So I did read a sequel. I didn't even think about that. That was a sequel, but it was terrible. I would never put it as the best sequel. Even though it's the only one, I still wouldn't put it in that category. Anyway, I did not like The Adventures in Wonderland. I thought it skipped around, or the story was just hard to follow, and I just did not like it. I've talked about that on the channel. I won't go down that path again. Another one that was a little bit of a disappointment was, this is a middle grade book. In my classroom at school, and I teach middle school, I have used, when teaching Africa and teaching apartheid in South Africa, I have used the book by Beverly Naidoo, Journey to Joburg, which is, it's probably a 5th, 6th grade level book. So it's a lower level book, but what we do is we read through it and then we hook on a whole bunch of outside research into what the book was talking about. It's a really good historical fiction book, something I would highly recommend it to everybody that teaches upper elementary or just lower middle school, like 6th grade or 7th grade. So another book that she wrote by Beverly Naidoo was Out of Bounds, 7 Stories of Conflict and Hope. And they're all based in South Africa, and it's all based around apartheid and everything that was going on there. And I did not hook into that one as much as I did with the Journey to Joburg. I didn't like it nearly as much. Now, of the 7 stories, there was a couple of them that were all right, but for whatever reason, it's not that it was bad by any means. It wasn't bad. I didn't connect with it. So that was a disappointment for me. So I say disappointment, not that it's a bad book. It just didn't connect the way I was hoping it would connect. And the third book that was a true disappointment that I did not like, that I've talked about on the channel, was a history book, The Scythian Empire, Central Eurasia and the Birth of the Classical Age from Persia to China by Christopher Beckwith. He made some big pronouncements in the introduction, and he went nowhere with the narrative of the history of the Scythians. I learned very, very little about the Scythians, and I did not enjoy it. It dealt a lot with language, because you're talking about, he makes a big pronouncement that the Scythian Empire was one of the largest in the world, and I would say that loosely, in my opinion. But he talks about, throughout the whole book, a lot of it is connected with languages and how the words are the same. So that means because they have similar words, they ruled that empire first. And I don't know. I think he made some big jumps that I was not prepared to follow. And to me, the best way I could explain the Scythian Empire was it was extremely boring and just really hard read. You would read, you'd get 3 or 4 pages along, and then you would think back, what did I just read? And there's no recall. And maybe it's just me. Maybe some of you like the language stuff. I thought it was extremely boring. Not very well done. I don't think he had enough research for it either. And then another thing he did in the introduction was he used COVID as a scapegoat for his bad story, in my opinion. He used COVID too much. He said, well, I couldn't do the research. Well, if you can't do the research for the book and you can't get it all done properly, why did you publish it? That's my whole deal with it. It's okay. I mean, that is a valid excuse. People weren't able to travel and go to places where they needed to do their research. I get that. But don't use it as an excuse. Just don't publish your work until it's ready. But that's just my opinion. All right, so number 6. Moving on here. Number 6, the biggest surprise. Now, these two were 2 audiobooks that I listened to. And one of them was called Where I Belong by Marcia Mickelson. And I actually got the idea to read this one through a education magazine. It was on a list of middle grade books to read. And it was all about immigration. And it talked about, it's a fiction book, but it takes a migrant family, or not a migrant family, excuse me. And it was an immigrant family because they weren't meaning to go back. So we're not talking, migrations back and forth. They came to America. They did it illegally. They're living in Texas, and you hit the extreme conservatism that can happen in Texas along the border. And the whole story is based around her family and how they truly did want the American dream. All of the they were not coming here for negative reasons whatsoever, and they had came here. They had become productive members of the United States. Now, obviously, citizenship was an issue, but it really brought a softer side to the immigration issue. It looked from the immigrants' point of view, and I thought it was very well done. It was a big surprise. I didn't know what to expect, if it was going to go extreme one way or the other with politics, but it did a really good job of showing the other side of the argument. The next one for biggest surprise, the second one that I put in this, was a recommendation, not specifically to me, but to everybody, from Mark over at Book Time with Elvis. And he recommended everybody to read his favorite book, 3 Men in a Boat. Now, I talked about this on the channel. That book is hilarious. It talks about 3 guys who want to take a trip out on a boat, but they don't want to really do the work that it takes to go out on the ocean, so they decide to go up a river and just take a vacation up the river. And it talks about all the blunders of the upper class, and it is absolutely hilarious. And the best way I describe it is it's a lot like P.G. Wodehouse when he does the Jeeves and Wooster, how Wooster is, and just made me laugh the entire time I listened to it. Pretty short book, so if you want something short and funny, that is the book to read. All right, so number 7, favorite new author. My favorite new author, and it comes from the book True Grit, is Charles Portis, because and I don't know, I would be willing to read another book by him. I don't know if I'm going to go out of my way to go find it, but if it was there, I would read it, if that makes any sense. And the reason I chose him is because there were not a whole lot of new authors for me this first half of the year. I've read most of them before. They were just new books by those authors. And I mean, that's just kind of the luck of the draw. So I chose Charles Portis because I'm reading this I read this for June on the Range, our reading event for reading Westerns during the month of June. It's a celebration of Westerns. Excellent book. I thought it followed, I went back and watched both of the movies after this, both the versions, the John Wayne, True Grit, and then of course I go blank again on the newer version of it. I like the newer version better than John Wayne's version. it follows the book way better than John Wayne's version did. I thought it was very, very well done. And if I think of the actor's name, I'll let you know. But I'm going, oh, here it is. Hang on, because this is the movie version. Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges played Rooster Cogburn, and thoroughly enjoyed this. So Charles Portis is my favorite new author. He's not a new author, but new to me. Number 8, newest fictional crush. Now, I don't usually crush on characters in books, but I'm just taking it as a a new character that I've really kind of fallen in love with, that I really like. Not necessarily that I'm going to go marry, because I'm already married, folks. I chose this from the book By the Pricking of My Thumbs, and this is, what is her name? Now I got to think of her name. Tuppence. And Tommy and Tuppence Beresford are a couple of mystery solvers that Agatha Christie came up with. They're a couple that fell in love with each other, and I chose Tuppence because she is a pretty smart cookie. She is really good at solving crimes, and she's doing it during a time period that socially and stereotypically women weren't able to do a lot of things, and she's going out and doing those things. And I had a lot of I appreciated the character, and I appreciated what Agatha Christie does with that character. My newest favorite character overall is, let's see, Superintendent Battle, who works for the Scotland Yard. And I read that, or I got introduced to his character in The Secret of Chimneys by Agatha Christie. And I just think he is he's not an outspoken detective. He's kind of quiet in the background, very observant, picks up on everything and puts everything together very, very well, can keep secrets, and I thoroughly enjoyed his character in this book. And he's able to, solve the mystery of chimneys. So, let's see, book that made you cry, or the saddest book you have read. I have not had any this year that have made me tear up, but it did make me sad. Was, again, True Grit. At the end of the book, the part that makes me sad is you get built up with these characters where, let's see, they're on Maddie Ross and Rooster Cogburn are on the hunt for Tom Chaney. Tom Chaney murdered Maddie Ross's dad. And so, a little bit of a spoiler alert here. At the end, they catch Tom Chaney, and they're going along, and Maddie makes sends a letter to Rooster and says, hey, let's meet up. And Rooster is on one of these Wild West shows now. He's kind of in retirement and just making money however he can. And she goes to meet him at one of the stops, and he, in travel in that time period's slow. He ends up dying 3 days before she gets there. And so that was kind of a sad moment in the book, because, there's a big connection with these characters, and he saved her life, and she wanted to pay respects to him, and she's not able to do that. Well, kind of is. She pays her respects by having his coffin dug up and then sent to her family farm, her family cemetery, and buried on her family plot. And, it's a little bit emotional there if you're reading into it. Let's see, number 11, book that made you happy. Now, this one's pretty easy. Now, at one of my local libraries that I go to, they have a reading challenge for the summer of 2023. They did it last year, introducing the reading challenge, and I participated, and they're doing it again this year, and I'm participating again. And each month they have a different challenge, and this month's challenge is read a favorite book from your childhood. Now, I chose The Boxcar Children, the very first one in the series, by Gertrude Chandler Warner. Now, I chose this. This truly is one of my favorite books from when I was a kid. I was in foster care and all that kind of stuff, and so I kind of bounced around from home to home. And so when they lose their parents and they run away and they go live in a boxcar, for whatever reason, when I was a kid, I made a connection there. And the reason that this is my book that made me happy was I had my 6-year-old. We've been reading books with her every night, and then if we take a nap in the afternoon, then we read one before and after the nap. And I said, well, hey, let's try this book. You want to try this book? Because it's got a few pictures in it as you're going along. You got some black and white pictures there. And my daughter ate this up. My 6-year-old ate this up. And she's getting to the point where she can read herself. I mean, not a lot, but she's in the beginning stages of reading. And so she's really listening to the stories and putting things together. And when mysteries start to come about, she's doing the guesswork, trying to put the puzzle together. And so the Boxcar Children, she did that through the whole story. There weren't a whole lot of mysteries in this story, but in all of the sequels or the next few books, there's gonna be. And she's trying to put all that together. So that made me happy. I'm happy she enjoyed a book that I enjoyed. Let's see, number 12, favorite book to film adaptation that you saw this year. All right, going back again to True Grit. I ended up watching both of the movies that got created by John Wayne and Jeff Bridges, based on the book True Grit. Really, really enjoyed those. That was fun going back. I hadn't watched this for quite a while. It's one of those movies that used to come on all the time on Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and I'd sit on the couch with my dad, and because he loved John Wayne, and so we would watch that movie and fall asleep on the couch on a Saturday afternoon. And so I went back and watched those. Absolutely loved them. So let's see here. Number 13, almost done. Favorite review you've written this year, the Booktube version, favorite video you've done so far this year. Okay, so I went back, and this year I have really dropped the ball on making book reviews. I think I've only done one, and it was a very enjoyable view. I buddy read with Peg over at the History Shelf. We buddy read back in February, I think. Maybe it was January, February. We read Catastrophe 1914, Europe Goes to War by Max Hastings. And we did a review video of that. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was so much fun doing the Voxer group back and forth with her. And we would talk every day, every other day about stuff we were reading, about the different chapters and just different high points, and then different places we want to go with reading about World War I. That was a lot of fun. And then we did our wrap-up video, and we just talked about that. And then it was fun, getting stuff from the audience, comments from the audience about what was going on. And so I hadn't read a bunch on World War I. This is not I love the subject, but I haven't read a lot on it because I read so much in like the Civil War and the Revolution. I just haven't spent enough time in World War I. It has made me want to go back and read World War I. And I think everybody that's watched our buddy reads or our wrap-ups, I think everybody's always enjoyed those. So it's always good when you get positive feedback on that. So let's see, number 14, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. Okay, so I'm going to go with, again, we're going to go back to Agatha Christie on this, and there's two new sets of books. So the first one that I started buying was from Vintage Classics, and I absolutely love the artwork on all of them. I just chose this one. It's got the Titanic in the background. Was it the Titanic? Hang on, maybe not the Titanic. It was World War I. It was not the Titanic. I said the wrong one. It was Lusitania. Sorry about that. It's got the Lusitania in the background. And I thought it was a beautiful cover. But all of them from Vintage Classics that have been, they've been going back and reprinting these Agatha Christie books every so often. And I've got all of them, but the newest one that's going to come out in like January. That's the Blue Train, I think is the name of that one, and I'm going to buy it in January. I love these. These are probably my favorite. They just got a little vintage look to them. They're neat. But also, these new ones from William Moreau, where they've been doing the Marples, these are pretty cool too. And they've got all the others that she's written as well. But this is this whole series is a little bit like this, and they're all real pretty. I chose this one. This is one of the newer ones I bought. And I just like the color scheme on this one. So, love those. I think those are beautiful covers. All right, so very last question. And then we'll wrap this up. So, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Okay, so these are all chunky monkeys. These are books that I've been looking forward to. Some of them, a couple of them I've already started. I just need to get through them. And other ones I have not started at all. Okay, so first on the list is I'm going to do a buddy read, John Adams by David McCullough. We're going to read Patrice, me and Patrice Jones. I am so sorry, Patrice. I messed up again. Me and Patrice, we're going to read that. We wanted to read David McCullough. And that one's going to start, I think, in July. I need to get a hold of her and find out, but we're going to buddy read that, so I'm looking forward to that. We're going to do that in July. I've started, I am in, let's see, how far? 155 pages into James Michener's Hawaii. This is part of my James Michener project. I'm kind of going through, trying to read at least one a year, if not two a year. And this is a big, big paperback. It is 1,130 pages. It's a big one, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. They are just now getting to the island of Hawaii, and they are starting to people the Hawaiian Islands, and so looking forward to seeing where this goes. I think my next chapter is making a big jump in history, or I did make a big jump in history. So it'll be fun to see how that goes. I'm going to be working on that throughout the next couple months. Let's see here. I was sent these two books by a good friend of mine on Booktube, and I need to get into them. I'm really looking forward to them. It's Michael Burlingame's biography on Abraham Lincoln, A Life. Big, big books. And these published versions don't even have the whole manuscript in there. They had to cut a lot of stuff. If you go to... there's a college, Knox. What is the name of that college? There's a college website that has the full PDF of all the stuff that, not just this, but the stuff that got cut also. And when I get done with this, I'll probably go back to that and see what all got cut out. But I want to get that read. I'm looking forward to that. I actually started the other day Sherlock Holmes. Everybody out there has been telling me I need to get this. I'm probably going to finish the first chunk of the first story, or maybe even the whole first story today. But this is Sherlock Holmes, the original illustrated, 37 short stories and a complete novel from Strand magazine by Arthur Conan Doyle. Never read Sherlock Holmes. I know you guys are all shaking your head. How in the world have you not read Sherlock Holmes? Well, I'm fixing it, all right? I'm getting that read. So really looking forward to that. I enjoyed that first story. I'm probably halfway through that first story. Enjoying that. I just got to get it done. Another book that I have on my radar for this second half is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I've been talking about this the last 2 years, and it has been, I think it's just the sheer size of it. I've put it on the back burner. Well, back burner no longer. I am going to get that started. And then this book, I'm over halfway through it, and I should be finishing it by, this should go on my June list of books that I got finished. And that is John Meacham's And There Was Light, Abraham Lincoln and the American Struggle. And it's just a biography on Lincoln. I am right now, 1861 in the war. And it's a pretty good overview of Lincoln's life. There's not a ton of detail. It's not really that big a book. It's just over 400 pages. And, you guys have all seen, well, you saw that 2-volume set I just held up. and they had to cut a bunch of stuff out of that one. So I think it's 421 pages of text is not enough to cover Lincoln's life, but Meacham, like he does in all of his books, is doing a really good overview of Lincoln's life. I found that that's what Meacham's probably the best at. He doesn't go necessarily into a ton of detail on a lot of issues, on the individual issues, but he does a good overview. So, Booktube, that brings me to the end of the Mid Year Freakout Tag 2023 edition. Like I said, I got 68 books at this point, 68 books read, and I've enjoyed most of them. Yeah, Agatha Christie's been a big hit for me this year, and she's probably going to continue to be a big hit because that's part of a project I'm working on. But anyway, now that I have summarized my first half of the year, how is your first half of the year going? Are you doing well? How many books have you gotten through? What's your best read of the year? If you're somebody out there that makes videos and you have not done the Freakout Tag, you need to freak out and do the 2023 edition of this tag. So Booktube, thank you for watching. Had a lot of fun going through these. It's always good to go back and reassess what your reading is. So until next time, happy reading.